Hello, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates, and I'm going to be speaking with you today on the subject fear of engulfment, that crazy missing part. When I was 17 years old, I had a very sincere and intense Christian conversion experience, and what it did was it took my family's harshness and shame and blended it with genuine Christian faith, and sort of came up with a dysfunctional hybrid that for me was a bit of an addiction, but it kept me out of worse trouble, I'm sure. But back in the day, early 80s, my favorite Christian singer was a man named Keith Green. Great man, great singer. He was killed in a plane crash, unfortunately. Loved that guy. Very fiery personality. And he sang a song written by my other favorite musician, Christian musician, Phil Keaggy, one of the world's greatest guitar players. And the song was "Until Your Love Broke Through." Beautiful song. And part of the lyrics, it talked about that crazy missing part that was missing. And of course, in the song, the crazy missing part was Jesus. You might see steam rolling from my mouth here. It's a little bit cold out here. I came to Myrtle Beach to write even though it was cold in February, because I wanted the beach to myself. And it's pretty barren down there. I'm gonna go get a run a bit. So the crazy missing part, and I had planned on coming here to Myrtle Beach to write, to resume work on my book on abandonment, my second one, about sort of the tools to use to deal with abandonment. And I will get to that, and I am committed to that, but sometimes your higher power just has a different direction that they take you. So at this juncture in my life, the crazy missing part is something that's been pulling some things, some concepts together for me in recent days. And that's some insights into engulfment fears. So that's my crazy missing part at this point in my life. Recovery to me is an adventure, and it's filled with many sort of twists and turns and uncharted waters. You never know what's coming next, and I find life to be a blast. It's hard. Life's hard. Mine is. I don't know about yours. But I like the adventure of it. So there's an adventure here in that I learned a piece that's really clicking and fitting some things together. So when you're in recovery and you're paying attention, every single day is rich with opportunity to learn and heal. But every once in a while, you get really blessed with some especially mind-blowingly juicy epiphanies that are game changers. Previously missing pieces that make everything else fall into place once you finally have that elusive missing piece. And I had a game changer drop on me the other day before I left on my trip. In my blog, I talked about this very long blog, just sort of spilled with my blood, sweat, and tears this week. And that piece of writing and this video are different than most. It'll be more raw, more fresh, more personal, more sort of off the divine teletype, if you will. I'm writing, number one, to process some things for myself, but also to benefit my fellow fear of engulfment sufferers who will someday come across this video and get a lot out of it. I've got some juicy things in this video for you folks. So usually my writing is some processing about long ago worked through issues, and the sole purpose is to help people and to market the practice as well, of course. But today it's more my processing, but that's sort of what we believe in. We believe that we can't take you where we haven't gone, and if we have some stuff come up, then we put it out there in a vulnerable way. And I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm just trying to struggle to be authentic and healthy as I can be. So, but I think if you'll sort of sift through the muck of this video, you're going to find some gems that'll change your life. But if you don't have engulfment issues and your significant other doesn't, you might want to pick another video, because this one might not fit your prescription very well. Let me define engulfment issues as either you or your partner, usually not both, just one, who's distancing, who shuts down emotionally, who has a fear of commitment, who sometimes recoils when they're touched, who has social anxiety, who has oversensitivity to being controlled, who is not worthy of feeling loved, who has a fear of somebody getting too close, and they feel invaded upon. They have rigid boundaries, they tend to be aloof, and they tend to hold some secrets. So if that doesn't fit you, unless you're a big fan of Mark Smith, you might want to go watch a music video or something. But so here's the deal. Like most counter-dependent men, I always thought my deepest story, my core story, was shame. Not so much just you're not good enough, but you fellas know, and also female counter-dependents, the deep down story is you're a piece of shit. And you know, I thought it was that guy who was driven by that. But I had a recent personal therapy session with a therapist who was using Byron Katie's system of self-inquiry work. I discovered that my deepest core was not what I thought. By the way, Byron Katie isn't a therapist, but she's a lady, and funny name, Byron. But I encourage you to Google her. Brilliant woman. And it's all about changing how you think, which is sort of how Family Tree works early on in the process of therapy. So I discovered that my deepest core story was this, that my whining, crying, and neediness as an infant was so overwhelming and negative for my mother that she fled from me so that she could love another little boy, my cute little brother Sammy. So that was a head snapper for me. So your core story or belief about yourself is what drives you, and it's sort of the foundation of what I call your imago, what the imago therapist Harville Hendricks call your imago, or basically who you like. Who do you think is hot? How are you wired in that way? Our wounds are calibrated. Our wounds calibrate our sexuality, and that determines who we're attracted to. So before this particular turnaround therapy session, I would have jokingly told you that my perfect type, and I think you guys have heard me say this, is just a mean, crazy chick with wicked abandonment issues. You know, that's who I thought fit my prescription, but I don't think it's exactly right. So that had been my experience. I started to work on my issues indirectly by exploring relationships with these mean, crazy women about 10 years ago. And but I had been missing this ingredient the past 6 or 7 years. So this insight has really shuffled the deck for me. So now I know that by far the number one imago characteristic that draws me to a woman is really an intense initial sort of emotional come and get me, emotional neediness inviting me to pursue her, followed by a much more intense, cold, rejecting fortress of defenses, of fear of engulfment of my immense neediness. So the picture I get is Lucy holding the football. Come on, Charlie Brown, come kick the football. I won't pull the football back this time. And Charlie, he's a trusting soul, and he comes running, ready to quit, kick the ball, and of course she jerks it back, and he lands up on his head on the ground. And that's sort of a new insight for me, and I'll get to how this fits in with you. So if you aspire to build a healthy interdependent relationship, you have to start with somebody whom you have off the charts chemistry with, and then go to work with those ingredients. I've been sort of trying to make pot roast out of without any beef, and that's been a little bit unsatisfying. So I'm writing this post from the advantage more of if your partner has engulfment issues, so you would be more the one with abandonment issues, more the needy one, more the pursuer, the maximizer, not the minimizer, and you're in a relationship with somebody who fears engulfment, and so you suffer indirectly. So I'm going to quote pretty liberally from two sources. One is from an expert. The guy's name is David Richo, I think it's, or Richo, R-I-C-H-O, and he's a therapist out in San Francisco. He wrote a book called When Love Meets Fear, How to Become Defenseless and Resourceful. Like that title. And then also a blog post of a devotee of Mr. Rico, and that's Adrienne Hall. The blog post is called Engulfment and Abandonment Fears. And Adrienne Hall is also out, she's in Manhattan Beach, California, near San Francisco. So Miss Hall says it's possible to be on both sides of the dynamic of abandonment and engulfment at different times and maybe with different partners, although you may tend towards experiencing one fear over another. So that explained to me why I was much more this past relationship, this past 6.5 years, I've been more the pursued than the pursuer, more the object of initial adoration and engulfing control than playing that role myself. But it just felt like something was missing. My gal, she'd let me kick the football all day long and she never once pulled it back, which sounds great. It sounds pretty awesome, but I'm just wired to be Charlie Brown, laying on my head, missing the football. God help me. So I felt a little better for being so slow on the uptake when Adrienne Hall wrote that the fear of abandonment or the fear of engulfment, is actually just as widespread. And in her experience as a therapist, it seems much more difficult to notice for the person experiencing it. So if you got it, it's hard to know with this one that you got it. So, the cool thing about recovery is the insights just keep coming. They just keep rolling at you. And life just keeps getting better and better and better. I feel really blessed at age 55. I feel like equipped with the insights that I have now, the paradigm I have now, the individuation work that I've done, that I'm just finally now to maybe have the ability to build an interdependent relationship with perhaps a similarly equipped woman. But I don't know any 23-year-olds or 25-year-olds or 28-year-olds who are prepared to build a healthy interdependent marriage. They got the radar system, they picked the right person, but other than that, they tend to just have a lot of naivety and not much depth. They haven't been run over by enough trucks, if you will. So I guess it's Dr. Rico, my bad. And so he's a psychotherapist, a teacher, workshop leader, and writer who works in Santa Barbara and San Francisco. And he writes that people with engulfment fears come across as aloof, as harried, as angry, as entitled. All these are me. Cold, that can be me. Refusing to make commitments, needing more space, keeping secrets, being indifferent, being intolerant, having rigid boundaries, being embarrassed about any affection in public. So it sort of sounds like if you pick somebody with engulfment fears, it's sort of like falling in love with a prickly pear. You know what a prickly pear is? You find it looks like a cactus. You reach for that pear and you're going to get stuck with a lot of stickers. So it made me think, a lot of you have heard me process some work I did in a relationship with a woman named Christy years ago. And I just have remorse about just how engulfing I was, and wish I could make amends there with that. So Hall writes, it is the fear that someone will invade our inner space, take us over in some way, or diminish who we are through criticism. This fear is triggered by someone's perception that they are being crowded when that may not actually be the case. Just because you have a perception doesn't mean it's happening. Just like many times with abandonment issues, if you have that, you project upon your partner. They're an hour and a half late coming home for dinner. That means they're at a hotel, cheating, when really they just had to work late and it was out of their control, and they told you that. But you will project onto them the worst possible motives just out of your own woundedness and out of your own abandonment. The same thing happens with engulfment fears. So they have a hair trigger oversensitivity to any perceived encroachment, control, intrusion, or sign of possessiveness. Do not try to possess somebody with fear of engulfment. They don't like that. A good picture of fear of engulfment is in football. They have a penalty called encroachment, where the defense just jumps over through the line and gets at the quarterback without the ball being snapped, and it's only 5 yards. But that's what it feels like to have fear of engulfment. You're being encroached upon. You need to drop a penalty flag on whoever does that to you. So Hall elaborates on the childhood forces that might have conspired to create their overly sensitive transference reactions when she wrote that their natural human drive, this is little kids with overly controlling parents, overly protective parents, their natural drive toward independence and growth may have been stunted and compromised by over-involved parents. This causes a very unpleasant internal experience, but it's hard for the conscious mind to perceive this, since it does not seem like anything is wrong on the outside. It just feels bad. Many times if you're interacting with somebody with fear of engulfment issues, they just say something doesn't feel right, or it feels weird, and they shut down. So Another reason people may have this fear is their parents are very critical when they got close to them. So allowing someone to come close equals finding that something is wrong with you and you're going to feel shamed. Another formula that seems to cause this fear is if somebody had a parent who may not have been very aware of their child's experience because they were all wrapped up in dealing with their own overwhelming experience of addictions, marital problems, domestic violence, chaos, financial struggle. So closeness in this experience was the equivalent of being sucked into and bulldozed by the parents' chaos. So it's real important to figure out what motivates your spouse, your significant other, and what's the cause of their engulfment issues, and what is the exact nature of their engulfment issues, and why it turns you on. Why are you attracted to Lucy when you could have somebody that'll let you kick the football all day long? Why are you attracted to distancers who shut down and shut you out and don't meet your needs? You need to ask yourself that. You need to come up with answers. So if you have the dynamic of fear and abandonment and engulfment in your relationship, you need to be in therapy with a good couples therapist who understands these issues and understands family of origin work. Hall addresses the process of working through these issues as a couple when she wrote about it in what she called the Dr. David Richo special. Admit that you have this fear of engulfment out loud and stay with it for a second longer than you can stand it, and act as if the fear was not holding you back in that second. And you'll get stronger each time and prove to yourself that nothing scary and horrific is happening. That means you let your partner have space and you attend to yourself while you are afraid of them leaving you, or you let your partner get a little closer by holding them and sharing what you have on the inside, and take a tiny step in committing yourself to your relationship and breathe through it. You'll get through it. It's okay. Finally, Dr. Richo addresses the recovery process when he boils it down to one sentence, two sentences. When you go, I will grieve and I will let you go. That's the work of somebody with abandonment issues. For engulfment, when you get too close, I'll just ask you to give me more room. Sounds simple, it's hard to get there. So the work of somebody with intense abandonment issues is to breathe deeply, be vulnerable, yet keep the ravenous neediness under control. Listen well, be aware of people in your life who press your buttons. Let go of your grasping little infant self who wants to possess and keep to themselves, and attend every day like it is a therapy workshop. And I'm learning to love. I'm learning to invest in myself first and foremost. This Byron Katie, I was listening yesterday, and she said, your lover is your integrity, your commitment to being authentic. That's your lover. That'll make you full. And you can never betray that lover. You have to be true to yourself if you're going to be a whole person and be in a relationship. So be aware of the people that press your buttons, and let go of anyone your grasping little infant self wants to possess, and keep to yourself, and attend every day like it's a therapy workshop, because it is. So take care of yourself first, and realize what I'm realizing is my cup is overflowing and it's not empty. And to maintain dignity, to always honor and respect the boundaries of others and the wishes of others, to truly see another person and to have the resources to make it about what's best for them rather than giving in to the primal tantrums of my inner infant. It's so freeing to finally be a grown-up man. And I'm grateful for these insights and for the time to process them and for the opportunity to share them with you and to sort of practice them and flesh them out. I'm just interested in seeing what they'll do to my calling as a writer and as a man in relationships. Both of these conditions are brutal conditions, abandonment and engulfment, and they're built to consume and destroy even the most committed of relationships. So join with me in a really unwavering commitment to ruthless authenticity as you and your partner manage and supersede the abandonment, engulfment dance on your journey toward healing your deepest childhood wounds and keeping a safe and better than you've ever been loved, true home of belonging. That's what we all want, a home of belonging. So thanks for listening today. God bless. Visit our website. I'm over time here, familytreecounseling.com. Join our website on YouTube, Family Tree Counseling. And thanks again. Bye-bye.